Hey, this is The Hard Truth. Tony Shaffer, powered by Sig Sauer. Never settle. I had a choice of what I carried in combat. I carried Sig Sauer. I recommend you carry Sig Sauer because it is the best. I only carry the best. I recommend you carry the best. We are on the America Out Loud Talk Radio Network, also available on the America Out Loud Podcast Network. Check us out at Project Sentinel, projectsentinel.net, .com. We're on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Rumble, etc. And we also have a new sponsor we're bringing in. Swiss America. Swiss America has the best possible resources to make you financially sound in these difficult times that we are facing. So be sure and check out their line of both products and information that will help ensure that you and your family are financially secure in the times that are coming. And we're going to have some challenging times. Speaking of challenging times, we are joined today by Dr. Jerome Corsi, Jerry Corsi. Dr. Corsi, welcome to The Hard Truth.
Thank you, Tony. It's great to be with you again. Thank you.
So we've already done a little bit about this in the past, recent past, but I think it's significant that we're here today to talk about your latest book, Final Analysis, the assassination of John F. Kennedy, the forensic analysis of the JFK autopsy x-rays that provide detailed information about two headshots from the right front and from the left rear that actually provides context, details, and important information relating to the reality of what happened to John Fitzgerald Kennedy. And we're going to get into that today. By the way, at the time that we are talking, as we tape this, it is #1 on Amazon in the United States national government in the United States. And that is the subcategory, #1 bestseller in United States national government. So I think, Jerry, calling the government out, at least in this case, is getting significant attention, and I think it's a good thing. So we'll jump right into it. By the way, just quick note, the premise here, and I'm just going to put it right up front. What we're talking about, Jerry, today is essentially a case for not only the evaluation and factual explanation of the JFK assassination. We're talking about essentially a election interference. Can I say that? I guess I can, because I do. Election interference of the ultimate degree of a coup d'état, right? That's kind of the cutting to the chase here, right?
That's right. I mean, the context of this is really the government creating a Jim Carrey Truman Show, a narrative, a whole structure of reality that's a lie.
Right.
You know, and the ability to create a shocking event. You know, President Kennedy is shot in daylight, his head shot apart, the Twin Towers come down, and then the narrative.
Yeah.
Okay, and this is narrative. Then it's very convincing. The mainstream media parrots it, and it's disguising a reality. And the reality is always with these little uncomfortable details, which we're going to cover with Kennedy. But, you know, why did buildings at 9/11 that were not hit by the airplanes, why did they fall down? Well, we don't have an explanation of that.
Right.
Okay, and so when these facts don't fit together, you know you're being lied to one way or the other. You don't know what the lie necessarily is, but you know the government is covering something up, and they are architecting a future that they want you to believe and to behave in a certain way.
Yeah.
And usually it's to give the government more control, and usually it has to do with fighting wars and making money for arms dealers and arms manufacturers, and our governments have gotten too large, too capable of psychological operations, and too criminal. And they have no regard for constitutions or human rights or God or any of the other things that normal people would respect and expect the government to respect.
Right. So one of the things I want to touch base on, I mean, obviously you and I share our concerns about 9/11. Obviously I was a whistleblower on it. I've never once contemplated or deviated from my initial observations and testimony. So, you know, I think a lot of us, by the way, because I didn't deviate, I didn't actually take the assignment to Gitmo. They offered me a promotion and 2 years exile. Obviously I became an enemy, and it is what it is. And I'm fine with that. But notably, anybody who actually is in the government, who actually does make factual and provable observations, you become the enemy of that government. Is that a safe bet?
Absolutely. You don't go along with the narrative. You're not coming along with the story. You know what? You're somehow or other out a renegade.
That's a renegade. That's right, for telling the truth.
For telling the truth.
Yeah.
You know, and that's
amazing.
They don't want the truth. Okay, so
No.
the Kennedy case is the Kennedy assassination, which is really a coup d'état,
Right.
is the Rosetta Stone for understanding how the deep state operates.
That's a great phrase, Rosetta Stone of understanding.
You know, that's and once you understand the Kennedy case, it becomes a lot easier to understand, you know, 9/11 or the pandemic or the lockdown or any number of other things that the government architects. And the government's ending up with enormous power, enormous control, and frightening technology. And they'll be happy to have World War III, which it looks like they're also architecting us into. And so, therefore, I think the Kennedy story has never been more important. And what makes this book different, the reason I believe this book is getting such attention is because of the work that David Mantik did. Dr. David Mantik is a PhD in physics and also an MD in radiation. He's been practicing radiation oncologist for over 40 years. So he's been reading X-rays for cancer patients for over 40 years. Now, what he did was, starting after Oliver Stone's movie in 1991, Dr. Stone started getting permission from the Kenedy family to see the X-ray. There's 3 skull X-rays of JFK from the JFK autopsy in the archives. Only 3. All the others are gone. Now, he brought in a densitometer, which is a scientific instrument that casts a beam of light, and it's recorded with an arms and measured logarithmically for the amount of light coming through the X-ray, which permits you to know what you're looking at, and permits you also to determine if the X-ray is forged or not. But these are scientific measurements, you know, and they're precise. And so what Dr. Mantik has established over the years was that all 3 of the extant Kenedy skull X-rays at the archives from the autopsy are all forged. They were all altered to mask evidence of frontal wounds.
Right. So let's stop there for a second. I want you to come back to the wounds, the nature of the wounds. But one thing I want the audience to understand that helps illustrate your overall point is, where did this autopsy take place at, Jerry?
At the Bethesda Naval Hospital in Washington, D.C.
And the crime, last time I checked, the crime was actually in Dallas, Texas.
That's correct. That's right.
So someone had to move the body. And so it's obvious to me and any observer, if you don't want someone to do a fair evaluation, you move it to a place you control the circumstance of an event, such as the autopsy. Is that an accurate kind of representation?
Yes. In fact, the Secret Service, when Jack Kennedy was dead at the Parkland Hospital, they called a mortuary. They got a ceremonial casket.
Right.
They wrapped Jack Kennedy's body in sheets. They put it into the casket, and the Secret Service pulled their guns because the coroner, Earl Rose, and a justice of the peace had come into trauma room 1 at Parkland and said, "We want the body because this is a crime, a murder in Dallas. There's no federal crime to kill the president. We want to do the autopsy."
Right.
And we have the jurisdiction to do the autopsy. The Secret Service pulled their guns. They put these 2 up against the wall, the justice of the peace and coroner, and they took the body out of trauma room 1, flew it back to Love Field in Dallas, and put it on Air Force One to go back to Bethesda, where they could control 100% of everything done in the autopsy.
So that's the first notable feature of this whole conspiracy. So at this point, Jerry, I don't remember if there's been litigation on this, but that's something I think it should have been. The fact that without authority, without due process, if you or I, even if I was an active operations guy, if I was a federal government employee, if I were killed incidental to operations in, say, Dallas, I'm pretty sure the Dallas PD would get the first shot at it, to include the crime scene control, processing, witness statements, and everything. The feds could come along, perhaps, but it would be a local jurisdictional issue. Is that a correct interpretation of the law, as I understand it?
100% correct.
So clearly, and again, let me state this for the audience: the federal government acted in reckless disregard to local law. Is that accurate?
100% correct.
So if it's true that the president was assassinated, murdered in Dallas. Local PD and law enforcement officers, to include the coroner, had the jurisdiction. The federal government acted in such a way that was completely illegal. I'd say that that right there is notable to the point of where there was no authority for the federal government to act, but they acted. They acted with impunity. They acted threatening violence. How come we've not talked before about the threat of violence against local law enforcement officials, Jerry? Why is this something that people have ignored, even though it was documented decades ago?
Well, it's been documented. Again, it's not part of the official narrative.
Yeah.
So therefore, it's not a topic that is going to be pursued. It's going to be suppressed. It's going to be made to be incidental.
Yeah.
Also, that the Secret Service, as soon as the limousine got from the crime scene at Dealey Plaza, took a couple minutes to get over to Parkland Hospital. As soon as the limousine was parked, the Secret Service has a bucket of water and they're cleaning up the blood and debris.
Yeah. A blood scene. Crime scene.
They're altering a crime scene.
Yeah.
And there's a bullet hole coming through from the front through the windshield. People can see it. The windshield is punctured on the outside is smooth. The bullet punctures the windshield, and the glass on the inside is beveled and flew out. That's clearly a frontal shot.
Yeah.
So the Secret Service makes sure nobody can take a picture of it. They get the limousine out of there. They've altered a crime scene and they prevented evidence from being observed. So from the very beginning, this is a obvious attempt not to get to the truth, but to establish a lying narrative as the reality.
And speaking of, I think they picked Dallas because of LBJ, right? I mean, I think Lyndon Baines Johnson and his influence regarding both being vice president and being able to be a dirty politician. Let's just say it. LBJ, Lyndon Baines Johnson, was one of the dirtiest politicians ever.
Correct.
And I think that he would have been Johnny on the spot, so to speak, to help the deep state act in the interest of removing Kenedy and putting him in place. And by the way, one thing that I'm not sure if you studied much, I did actually study as a kid, believe it or not, in high school. We had a professor, Dr. Dombrowski, who actually went through this with us in detail. This is back in the 70s in Lisbon, Portugal. And he pointed out that someone during the 1960 convention, Jerry, Baines, LBJ was adamantly opposed to JFK becoming the candidate for president. I guess there were massive battles at the convention. And apparently someone pulled Johnson into a room and said something, because he came out of that room and said, "I'm all for Jack Kennedy becoming president." And some would say the deal was cut at the convention in 1960 for what we saw play out in Dealey Plaza in Dallas. Do you think there's any potential that someone actually promised LBJ the presidency at that convention?
I think LBJ was confident he was going to become president. He knew, I'm sure he knew the assassination and approved of it. There's a lot of evidence on that. The week after, the week after Jack Kennedy was supposed to be in Dallas, I covered this in my first book on the assassination that I wrote 10 years ago, which is Who Really Killed JFK.
Yeah.
There was going to be an article in Life magazine that was going to expose Billy Saul Estes running prostitution clubs for the Congress, for the senators and the congressmen, after hours liquor and prostitutes, and all the things that Lyndon Johnson was doing to buy the Congress at that time.
Yeah.
And that would have destroyed Johnson. That article would have destroyed Johnson. If Jack Kennedy had lived into the next week, Lyndon Johnson's career was over.
Yeah.
And so, but let me show, Tony, I want to show some of the...
I just wanted to, but I'll let you go. But I was just saying, Jerry, I wanted the audience to understand.
Yes, you're right.
The deeper context for why this is so important. Because in things that are observable without having to do any research, the things which were reported, documented, or otherwise available for people to see, the evidence has always been in plain sight, but the narrative has been such to depress and deprive people of access to the facts because it goes against the narrative. So let's jump back into the narrative and what you're going to talk about here regarding the actual assassination.
When you see what I'm going to show you with these, what happens with people in terms of the Kennedy assassination is that, they are going to appreciate how the narrative was set once they really do get it in their minds and do understand that Kennedy was shot from the front.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I found to be the science that Dr. Mantik has done, for instance, on page 171, Chris, if you'll just to show the figure 3.9 in the book, which is, and enlarge that. You're looking at a skull X-ray here. On the right-hand side is the forehead with this big empty space where there's been largely a blown out of all of the tissue and the bone. On the left of the X-ray, that's the back of the head.
Yeah.
Now a shot came in, and we have on this put in yellow the bullet fragments from a bullet that broke up. So you're looking at fragments of a bullet. The shot came in at the right forehead at the hairline. Now, what's so startling about this is that you can see the breakup of the bullet.
Yeah.
At the very front, there's a lot of little dust-like particles, which are not obvious in this particular view. You'd have to see it at the archives in close-up. But what is obvious is that the bullet trail comes from the forehead to the back of the head in the upper quadrant of Jack Kennedy's head. And the largest fragment, which has the most weight and had most momentum, is in the back of the head, and the shot did not exit. Now, that is obviously a frontal shot.
Yeah.
I mean, anybody forensically looking at this, this is slam dunk. That's a frontal shot. And yet that evidence has been ignored for 60 years. Also, if you look by the temporal bone, by the ear, so there's another big black spot to the bottom of that.
Yeah.
And we can show close-ups of it. There was a shot that came into the head at an oblique shot. It was an angle. In other words, it wasn't straight into the head.
Right.
It was a tangential shot. It hit at the right above the ear, and it blew out the right hand back of Jack Kennedy's head. It blew out a huge portion of it, about the size of a baseball. Okay, and there was blood and gut and gore and everything else all over the left side of the limousine. The police officers on the left got splattered with Kennedy's blood. Clint Hill is running up to get onto the limousine. He gets splattered with the shot. This is obviously a shot from the grassy knoll.
Right.
And this is the shot where Kenedy is thrown violently back into the left. You can see it obviously in the Zapruder film.
No doubt.
There's three headshots. At the Zapruder film at 313, frame 313, the shot at a low angle to the back of the head hits at the knob of the back of the head. It's low angle, probably from the Deltex building. And Kennedy's head is starting to move forward, and you can see the spray of blood and tissue coming out from the front of his head. But within a second or two, by frame 334, which is only like 20 frames, okay, frame 334. In fact, if you wanted to, Chris, you could go to if you'll go to page 229, show figure 411, I'll show you what happens. At frame 331, Kenedy has a massive hit to the side of the head, and enlarge that, Chris, if you could. So you can see that there's Jackie Kenedy, but right there, Kennedy's head explodes by his right side, his ear. That's the shot that hit him, and from the grassy knoll. And the next few frames, the body is thrown back into the left violently, because that shot's blown out the back of his head.
Yeah.
Okay, now, if we continue with these frames, Jackie starts getting up out of the car, and she is trying to retrieve a PC. Jack Kennedy's already now thrown back to the left. Clint Hill's trying to reach onto the car in this frame. This is now 346 of the Zapruder film. And Jackie's coming out of the car. By frame 381, Jackie's reaching for a piece of Jack Kennedy's head. And at 388, you can see it's on the left-hand side of the limousine, but again, back into the left. And that's this is the third shot. So the first shot was the back of the head, then the shot to the forehead, then this violent shot to the right temporal bone that blew out the back of his head. And Jackie's picking up on the left of the limousine a piece of his head, which she puts back into his head, thinking she can make him okay, like a break your arm, just put it back together again.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't work like that. She's in a blackout.
Yeah.
She doesn't know where she is. She's in a shock. But these are now clear evidences that there were two frontal shots and one from the rear. None of these shots could have come from the Texas School Depository. because the angles are wrong.
Right.
And, it's not an elevated shot coming down. These are shots that are fairly level on,
Yeah.
and are massive shots from the front. Especially the one to the temple flew out the back of his head. And at Parkland Hospital, the doctors all said, they saw the wound that came through the windshield. Jack Kenedy had a puncture in his neck,
Right.
which is like a pencil hole, just a puncture wound. That's an entrance wound.
Right.
The back right of his head was missing. That's an exit wound.
Right.
So the doctors at Parkland knew that Jack Kenedy was shot from the front, and they said so in a press conference.
Right.
Now, the government had a problem because there was a photographer named Elkins who was standing in front of the limousine, and he took a picture of the moment when Kenedy is reaching for his throat. I would put it in the book too. It's a little bit later on in the book.
Yeah, I've seen the picture in the past. Yeah, I don't know if you could bring it up.
Page 277, Chris.
First, if you could bring it up, that'd be great.
Number 5.4, 277 in the book. And you can see Jack Kenedy reaching up for his neck, and enlarge that a bit. This is the moment the shot hits the wind through the windshield, and that red spot is where the shot punctured that circle. And then Chris, zoom back out, because you can see that behind Kenedy is the Texas School Book Depository. So now, when the government frames Lee Harvey Oswald from the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository and drops 3 shells there, 3 cartridges, spent cartridges, and says all the boxes were arranged in a sniper's nest, they're stuck because the body shows wounds from the front, but the setup shows all the shots had to come from the back. And as soon as the public saw this with Elkins' photograph, which came out within an hour of the assassination, the public knew Jack Kenedy had to have been shot from the back.
Yeah.
But the body doesn't show that. So the government had to get the body out of Parkland.
Right.
They had to get it out of Dallas, going back to Washington. And in fact, with all the ceremonial casket you see at Andrews Air Force Base, with the casket being unloaded from the airport, and Jackie and Bobby drive off to Bethesda with the Navy ambulance, that casket's empty because Jack Kennedy's body had been put into a compartment, taken out of the ceremonial casket from Dallas, put into a compartment, one of the storage compartments in Air Force One. And when all the lights go off at Andrews Air Force Base in the ceremony, with the body arriving on November 22nd, 1963, a helicopter is waiting and takes the body to Bethesda Naval Hospital, where it's picked up in a black hearse and driven to the back of the morgue and offloaded. Jack Kennedy's body comes into the morgue at 6:30 p.m. that night, an hour and a half before the start of the official autopsy. Yeah. And when he comes in, he's coming in a silver pinkish shipping casket, steel shipping casket. When they open that up in the morgue, the corpsmen, Navy corpsmen, bring that casket in and put it in the morgue. When they open it and take Jack Kennedy's body out of the silver shipping casket, he's in a body bag. They take him out of the body, like Vietnam, a body bag. They take him out of the body bag, and he's naked except for a towel around his head. That's not how Jack Kennedy's body left Parkland Hospital.
Right.
So there had to have been a casket switch. And the reason for getting Jack Kennedy's body to Parkland Hospital, to Bethesda Hospital, early was so that the 2 surgeons doing the autopsy, who are Humes and Boswell, could do pre-autopsy surgery on the head to make the frontal wounds go away and make it appear as if there were wounds from the back. Now, there's a couple of pictures of what these 2 doctors took scalpels to Jack Kennedy's head, and they erased the wound in the front on the forehead.
Right.
They took and Chris, if you'll go to page 386, I want to show you how badly they butchered Kenedy. They took a saw and they removed the parietal bone on the top of the head.
Right.
They removed that bone at Bethesda. And then they went inside Kennedy's skull and they started messing around looking for bullet fragments. And Kennedy's skull his head was an absolute mess by the time these doctors got finished with it.
Yeah.
I'll show you the pictures here in a minute.
There it is.
Page 386. And then if you go to page 390, you can see even more clearly how the top of the head, the bone is gone, the brains are lying out. there actually looks like there's a metal frame inserted in there into Kennedy's head. And when at 8 o'clock, when the honor guard, they get Jack Kennedy's body back into the Dallas ceremonial casket, which arrives later. There's actually 3 casket arrivals at Bethesda. They bring the official casket into the autopsy with the gallery. They open up the casket. They take Jack Kennedy out. He's now got towels wrapped around him like he left, and like he left Parkland. And the audience gasps when they see this head. And Dr. Humes had to have said there was pre-autopsy surgery, which 2 FBI agents attending the autopsy in the gallery, Siebert and O'Neill, put in their 302 after-action report. So it's documented that there was pre-autopsy surgery, and you can see the results of it right here. Now, it is not standard operating procedure to do a surgery on the head before an autopsy starts when you've got a head wound that killed the person.
Yeah. So, Jared, we have to leave it right there for the first half of the show. We'll come back and pick it up right there, talking about the head and what happened and why in the part 2 of our program. So right now we're going to take a break. We'll be back after this break on America Out Loud Network, and we'll continue the conversation with Dr. Jerry Corsi. We're obviously talking about his new book, Final Analysis, the actual details of the JFK assassination with facts, photos, and explanations of why the coup happened. And we're going to talk more about that after this break. Hey, this is The Hard Truth. Tony Shaffer, part 2, still powered by Sig Sauer, Never Settle. I had a choice of what I carried in combat. I always carried the best. I carried a Sig Sauer M11, P228, great weapon, and I recommend you choose what is best. Never settle. Always get Sig Sauer. We're on the America Out Loud Talk Radio Network and their podcast network. Check us out, projectsentinel.com and .net. We're on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, etc. Obviously, check out Swiss America. Swiss America has the best options for you regarding financial security for you and your family. You all need to be aware of what's going on regarding cash, regarding what you need to have available should the economy go bad. So I recommend you look at Swiss America for all of your financial needs. They're a great company, and we are happy to have them underwriting our show. So we're back with Dr. Jerry Corsi. Jerry is the author of the Final Analysis, the Assassination of John F. Kennedy, the final forensic information, evidence, and other details, which give context and essentially a form of detailed explanation. Jerry, if you don't mind me saying, you actually are able to document not only the facts, you document the deviations that were created for purposes of the official narrative. And let me say this for the audience to be very clear, so there's no, oh, he's a conspiracy guy. It's like, it's not a conspiracy if you can prove it's real. And I think the evidence is that there was a massive government effort to first off engage in the assassination, and then during, in real time, essentially create conditions to avoid accountability and the jurisdictional law, the law that said that Dallas PD and Dallas officials should be the ones who conduct the investigation. And most importantly, as we left off in the first half of the show, Jerry, Bethesda was engaging as a government entity with FBI and Navy doctors in essentially not only modifying evidence, they created evidence for purposes of the narrative. Is that an accurate summary?
Yes, they altered the evidence so it would mask the X-ray. 3 X-rays that we have in the archives are all altered to mask evidence of frontal shots. And the autopsy itself was preceded by surgery, pre-autopsy surgery in secret that the 2 Navy pathologists, Humes and Boswell, did to make it look like Jack Kennedy was shot from the rear.
Right.
And again, this was to solve the problem that the Parkland Hospital doctors knew he was shot from the front. In fact, the Bethesda doctors all night of November 22nd, 1963, the night of the assassination, they badgered the doctors from the Bethesda doctors badgered the Parkland doctors, saying that they didn't change their testimony, say they were wrong about frontal shots. They'd all be brought before certification boards. Their licenses to practice medicine would be taken away,
Jeez.
and they would never work again as doctors.
Yeah.
And
So-
that they buckled under that pressure.
Yeah, and that's interesting. So that's my next question. I'll turn it over to Elizabeth to do next. But Jerry, at the time this happened, was there any pushback by Dallas or any official in Texas to say, you first off destroyed the crime scene of washing out the car? That's number one. Number two, you had no authority to take the president. Was there anybody at all who pushed back at the time?
Well, the CIA, one of the top CIA guys who was involved in this, and subsequently, that Jack Kennedy had fired after the Bay of Pigs, brother was, I believe, the mayor of Dallas.
Oh, geez.
The penetration of the police force by the CIA and other government agencies was massive and extensive.
Oh.
I'm confident that certainly the documents we have released already show that Oswald was working with both the CIA and the FBI.
Yeah.
So the CIA and the FBI were all over Dallas.
Wow.
And they controlled everything from they told the Dallas police what they were allowed and not allowed to do in protecting the president. The CIA and the government agencies, the Secret Service controlled the entire event.
So they really wired this well. I mean, this was well planned, and I would argue, as I asked you in the first half of the show, I think this went back to at least the 1960 convention. I think this was well planned. So anyway, I forgot to do the introduction of the urbane Chris Cordani and the courtly Elizabeth Breckenkamp. So here we are. So we're going to keep going. So Elizabeth, did you want to pick up?
Yes, sir. So I have not read all the way to the end, but I was reading through your book, and there's one thing in particular, and I'm going to look down here. I believe it's page 314, where it's talking about, you're talking about the different angles of the shots, and it's talking about the damage of the safety glass of the windshield, and it's talking about it shows that if a safety glass windshield exhibited damage on the inside, as claimed by these two people, who had seen this, it's an indication of impact from the front. And so that kind of, that supports what you were saying before about the angle. So it clearly was coordinated. But what I really want to know is, and this, I am going to read it to the end. This book is fascinating. So many things I didn't know. I didn't realize that there were two doctors at Bethesda who did the pre-autopsy surgery. And yeah, you just don't do that. I mean, as a nurse, I mean, I know that you don't do that. I'm thinking if everybody actually knew all of this, which is why, we're promoting your book and encouraging people to read it. Don't you think there would be, like massive outrage and just shock? It's an incredibly coordinated cover up, like Tony was saying. And also, do you think realistically that anybody even now will be held accountable?
Well, I think you really got it, Elizabeth.
The windshield. I mean, that really got me.
Yes. And how many times that they had to replace the windshield because the government didn't know how a safety glass really worked when shot went through it. I mean, they kept messing it up. And
it says November 25th. They placed the windshield on the wrong side.
Yes.
I mean, so 2 days later, you say it right here. And there's the thing is, nobody can say you're a conspiracy theorist because the evidence is there. It's overwhelming. So it's not a conspiracy when there's evidence. There's massive
1,000 footnotes in here, and everything is fully documented. And affidavits,
it's
government testimony, and the book is 564 pages, and it's fully illustrated, so you can see everything we're talking about. And the point is, Elizabeth, to get to your question, yes, I think the shocking thing about this book is by the time you finish it, you realize how much you've been lied to by the government.
Yes.
And first of all, nobody likes to be lied to.
Yeah.
And secondly, this becomes not only that they lied, but they had the psychological processes of a psychological operation down so well and so architected that they knew they could pull this off, including complete control of the media, complete squelching of any investigation. I mean, in the back of the book, the very final thing we have in the back of the book is a CIA document that was official CIA document from 1967 and it made it the policy of the CIA to run a psychological operation against any critic of the Warren Commission in order to destroy their argument and to destroy them personally. So the CIA is fully invested in maintaining this story and still is today. The narrative that Lee Harvey Oswald did the shooting. Now, once
alone, yeah.
Once you see how preposterous the government's argument is, the government's evidence doesn't fit together. Because, of course, it's not how it happened. They're lying.
Well, hold on. Government agent George Costanza said, it's not a lie if you believe it.
Yeah, that's right.
That's the government's stance on the JFK assassination.
Yeah.
We're lying, but it's not a lie if we believe it.
Well, and that's in fact one of the reasons governments this deep state staged a coup d'etat in Dallas on November 22nd, 1963, and they got away with it. They're still getting away with it more than 6 decades later. And
that's the motto at Dulles Airport. Never mind.
Right. We're still getting away with it 6 decades later and counting. And so having done this once, these guys were rewarded for pulling off one of the greatest crimes in history and lying about it. So you think they stopped? This got them to continue. I mean, I caught HSBC money laundering. They were money laundering in conjunction with the CIA on behalf of the Mexican drug cartels. They got fined $1.9 billion by the Department of Justice for criminal activity. Nobody went to jail. I mean, this happens over and over and over again because the narrative is designed to give the government more power, more money, and they can architect wars. They can, rile everybody up on a war, and then the arms dealers and the bankers and the arms manufacturers makes a ton of money, and the people die. Well, that's collateral damage to these people. This is a business operation,
right? So, Jerry, on to that point, I really wanted to cover the issue that I think that we've been dancing around. Is that a lot of folks have said they feel that the Republic of the United States died with the event of JFK's assassination, and since then we've been on kind of just coasting because so much of what goes on is controlled by this cabal of individuals, many of which you can trace back and see where they go. And I think that's one of the reasons that so much of this remains classified. I cannot fathom any legitimate reason at this point to maintain any documents that the public can't see unless there's something to hide. Is that a correct interpretation?
I agree with you 100%. I mean, but I want to make one point here. It's not only continued, it's advanced massively. So the deep state's been running the country since 1963, CIA, military-industrial complex, buying the press, buying Congress, running drugs, engaging in managing the pedophilia operations, all of that. And now the deep state is at the point where we have a president whom a special counsel says is suffering from such senior mental dementia that he cannot be indicted for possible crimes of mishandling classified information. Well, how can you have a president who's suffering from mental deterioration, the onset of senior dementia? Well, because the president has not been running the country for 6 decades.
Exactly.
Obvious.
Yeah.
And finally they got what they wanted with somebody who is so out of it that they'll read any script and they'll let them be drugged. And why is not Biden as a family or Hunter Biden being prosecuted? It comes out, well, because they were CIA operatives, and that CIA wanted to get Burisma in Ukraine to go against Gazprom, and they were sending all this money over there. They were working with oligarchs. And so you don't prosecute CIA agents for doing the dirty deeds you want done.
Right.
And again, lying about it and making it. Go ahead.
Right.
We should do a whole show, Jerry, on the CIA versus other intelligence officers. Because, look, I mean, people.
Oh, that's a good idea.
I'm actually trained by CIA. I'm not CIA, because everybody makes this, you must be, if you're trained by them, you have to be them. It's like, I am not them.
No.
We DOD actually have a cadre of folks who are trained to be, operatives. We do operative things, but our focus is not what CIA essentially manages and does things to support the aspirations of the political class who do this. I've actually did a show on this a while back. CIA does not do intelligence collection; they do aspiration management for the class in charge. And I think any connection between intelligence collection and CIA is incidental at best. Would you agree with that, Jerry?
I agree. I mean, I think that the problem with the CIA is that it is a rogue criminal organization, and it is out for power and money.
Yeah.
Got to watch out. Maybe Colonel Flagg's overhearing all of this. So
He's moving like the wind. He's moving like the wind.
That
That's
is awesome.
The wind broke his leg. Yes.
The wind broke its leg. Yeah.
But honestly, a lot of people will think CIA once they hear intelligence, but there are a load of branches. And I guess the image you get is Colonel Flagg if you don't know anything, or if you're just watching, if you were babysat by television in the 1970s, like I was. But the fact is, yes, I can imagine people. I can imagine people saying, "Tony, you're with the CIA, you're former intelligence." And the fact is, they do get away with a lot these days. The FBI is getting away with a lot, so I don't.
Yeah.
I can see another reason why people think, "Hey, wow, they're all the same now."
Well,
A lot of them are the same.
they are, but the key point is that we are in a CIA military-industrial complex created reality. Okay, and we are now at the point where we're going into World War III, and the goal of World War III is to come out of it with billions of people killed, and a smaller group of people, oligarchs who control the resources of the earth, and all the rest of us will be under 24-hour surveillance and massively controlled, so we can't get even at our money if we do the wrong thing. The government will take it.
Right.
And
get coins, get hard currency, do things to actually enhance. As a matter of fact, Swiss America offers a coin deal. So just saying, those who are paying attention.
That's pretty cool. It is that time, though. It is time for Tony's Takes.
Yay.
So let's see if we're all ready for that. Tony's Takes is a lot of fun. As you know, it's also powered by Sig Sauer. Never settle. We don't
Never
settle.
settle.
We don't settle for bad takes. We only settle for Tony's Takes.
That's right.
Well, lady and gentlemen, let's get your thoughts on this. Wow. I'm gonna brace yourselves for this one, because I'll bet you didn't know this tiny little fact. NPR is biased. It also suspended the guy who blew the whistle on their abuses of their responsibilities as information gatekeepers on the taxpayer dime. What's your take, Tony?
So I think the guy also wanted to report on the fact that they were using the Muppets to give the daily briefings to Joe Biden, and that didn't go over well. So that they had to get rid of that.
Oh my gosh!
And I by the way, kudos to the Babylon Beak where I got that from, because they had
great.
Elmo.
Oh, that was
Elmo
so
explaining the attack of Iran on Israel. That was just brilliant. So you can't have the Muppets briefing the president, and
Elmo,
somehow he might lose credibility. Just saying.
Oh, Biden was hoping Prairie Dawn would explain it so he can sniff her. Well, that's a different story.
Prairie Dawn. Yes. Oh
my
gosh. Yeah, I remember her. She has a really high little voice. Yeah. Anyway.
I think Sid and Marty Krofft could have done a series, a 60s series on the Biden administration. Jill Biden would have been a great character, kind of the Nurse Ratched of her time. I think it would.
Well, I'm just shocked. I mean, I believed everything NPR has been saying for years, and now I'm just shocked.
Well, they present it in such a nice, quiet voice.
Oh yes.
Oh yeah.
All things considered.
Yes.
Yes.
Now we're going to be talking about
except for the things we don't want you to know.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Some things considered.
We're going to Portland, Oregon, where we're going to be talking to those who are using marshmallows in place of feminine products.
Tell
us about how marshmallows are able to take the place of pads. Patty?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Portlandia. It just
That's right. That's right. Portlandia is the Rosetta. Speaking of Rosetta Stones, Portlandia is the Rosetta Stone for understanding NPR.
It's such a great mockery of the.
Oh my God! I was watching it just last night. It's such a great thing. By the way, speaking of that, though, regarding the left, when for those of you who are listening to us and decide to sample NPR, be sure and go at or below the speed limit, because the moment you start listening, you're going to start rolling your eyes. You become disoriented. You're going to fly off the road. Just saying. So just a safety tip. If you decide to listen to NPR and driving, do the speed limit or below, because you're going to just like roll your eyes to the point of where you can't control your car. Just saying.
It's definitely something you'll have to do. And also, don't you might want to drink while you're listening, not while you're driving, but while you're listening to NPR. Okay.
I just can't do it anymore. They just make me sick.
Well, here's another. I can't even listen to their game shows. That's how bad they. Here's another one.
Wait! Don't tell me, right?
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah.
Oh,
And they always have the worst liberal inner circle, semi D-list celebrities there. I don't know how many times I can listen to Paula Poundstone on any kind of show, but that's a different story for a
Didn't she get
different
arrested
day.
for like child trafficking or something? I swear that
Really?
she got in trouble. Yes. Google it. I'm not joking.
At all,
I wouldn't be saying this publicly if I couldn't. Like, I know she was at least accused of it. Just saying. So, not saying she is. I mean, she pounded
She
something.
was
I don't know
accused
what
of
it
it.
is. Just saying. I don't know
Right.
if it's stone or not.
Well, here's another one.
Okay.
Well. That self-important New York judge, Juan Meacham, thinks his show trial is more important than the Supreme Court's immunity case when it comes to Donald Trump. So much so that he won't let Donald Trump show up there while his own kangaroo court is running. So aside from that, your thoughts on that? Also, what are the chances Trump's even going to get an unbiased jury in New York City?
So, well, first I'll just start with that. It's no chance. Secondly, Juan is actually worried at this point. The reason he got the gag oil, Chris, because in his previous life, he was Juan Valdez, and he doesn't want any of the pictures of him coming out with the donkey. Just saying, because that's incriminating. You know, Juan Valdez.
Pictures of him with the donkey is incriminating.
There you go. See,
No,
the connection to the Democratic Party.
I just love building a case around your key witness being a serial liar and already indicted and cried. Here's my he's got lots of credibility, right? You know, he's a criminal for lying. So therefore, we got to believe this guy.
Yeah, Jerry, did you hear that? Yeah, there he is. There's the judge back in the old days. That's right.
And the guy standing next to the judge is Juan Valdez.
He was so afraid that Trump would blab that. So that's why he got the gag order. Now we know, right?
Well, and who's in the bag? Michael Cohen?
Oh,
that's
Oh,
Hey-o.
yes.
hey-o. We give him a hey-o for that one.
There you go. That's right. Oh,
Very
man.
He's being brought to the stand to testify.
Yeah.
The bag man. Literally the bag.
Yeah, he's the bag
Oh
man.
my
He's the bag man.
God.
Don't get
So-
left holding the bag.
Did you see, Jerry, that Cohen actually appealed his probation because he said, well, I lied on the stand about my guilt, so therefore I'm not really guilty. You need to let me go from probation. It's like,
Yeah,
seriously?
I'm
Knucklehead does that?
only lie when I'm told to lie or I decide to do it.
Right.
Otherwise, I don't lie.
Yeah.
Right. I was told to lie.
Unbelievable.
Well, the
So,
only reason he's out there is he's not as bad as Michael Avenatti.
Michael Avenatti, who said from prison, this is all nonsense, by the way. I don't know if you saw that. Michael Avenatti tweeted from prison, this is not due process. This is going to blow up. And he's the prime guy that was going after Trump. I mean, you can't make this up.
Right.
So by the way, Jerry, so I have a question regarding this and everything else. Based on everything we're seeing here, I can't see this, even if he's convicted, this being left to stand beyond an appeal. Do you think that too? I mean,
this is
any
laughable.
court-
This case is laughable. This case should never have been brought to trial. I mean, it's a mockery of justice.
So they've taken federal law that they can enforce because the federal election commission said we're not interested. The federal government, who could actually do something perhaps on the misuse of money, they said no, we're not going to do it. So they've taken and created a Frankenstein case trying to use federal law, which was not like they can't actually do anything about.
Yeah.
And stretching a misdemeanor into a felony. Is that a correct interpretation of what they're doing?
and ignoring statute of limitations.
Right.
A lot of this
Right.
a lot of this can't even be touched on the statute of limitations.
Right.
But we don't need no stinking precedents or law. We can do what we want to do.
We don't need no stinking.
Yeah.
badge.
We don't need no stinking law. We are the law.
Right.
But what they're doing is giving this guy free advertising. They're showing the nation. The Democrats are showing the nation what they'll do to anybody who steps forward and accuses them of anything. and they're giving Donald Trump a platform to say anything they want. This isn't. Yes, people are going to watch the cut soundbite. The news media will selectively take out certain things that Donald Trump says, but now people can actually log on to the full live stream and watch everything he says, and they're going to learn. Again, all we need is 1 or 2% of the people who decide to vote in the swing states to see what's going on for what it is, and they're going to either walk or vote for Trump, and that's going to sway everything.
Well,
Free advertising.
Provided they're not already drunk the Kool-Aid and they're persuaded by the narrative, and so they're trying to want to see Trump be embarrassed, want to see Trump convicted. It doesn't matter whether it's true. We don't need no stinking evidence. We don't need no stinking crime. We don't need no stinking nothing. We don't like the guy. We're putting him in prison.
Well, that's your 47% from the old, from what Mitt Romney said, apparently. So that's another story.
Well, I have one last thing for Jerry before we go. I know we're short on time, but Jerry, I have a question. Dr. Jill Biden, you've probably heard of her.
Yes.
Yeah. So I have a question. Is she actually a doctor of dental proctology?
Well, I think
curious because she
think,
kind of gets things coming and going. Just saying.
Well, kind of dealing with Joe Biden, it probably is a requirement.
Yeah. I
mean, do we have any adult diapers around here?
Well, I think again that's why
that
dental proctology.
explains the plain brown packages that are delivered every day to the White House.
Maybe that was what was on the burro's back with Juan Valdez. There you go.
Joe Biden's diapers. He's recycling them.
There you go.
He's worried about climate change. He's got to make sure this hot stuff gets properly handled.
Yeah.
Hot stuff and stinky stuff. I'm telling you, I would not want to be in the West Wing of the White House after Joe Biden has a hot day on Air Force One. Just saying. I don't know.
Inside those diapers are his recycled rhetoric about how great his economy is.
I want to see more admirals in dresses.
I do too.
As long as they're 275 pounds.
Our voices. For those listening to the sound, get on. There's an 800 number you can call to the White House number. Call and demand John Kirby start wearing skirts for the Daily Brief. Yeah, let's all do it.
Let's get more generals in dresses. More.
He's a Navy guy and Navy admiral. In the Navy, I think he should. Demand he start his transition to being all that he can be, so to speak.
The Biden people
mixing some metaphors. So anyway, it's been a great show, Jerry. Dr. Jerry Corsi, the author of Final Analysis, the actual details of the forensic events regarding the JFK autopsy and the X-rays and everything else, kind of outlining what we all kind of knew, and now we do know without a shadow of a doubt. Jerry, thanks for joining us.
Pleasure.
We'll see you again real soon. There's some other things we're going to pick up and talk about other than the book, but the book has stimulated some thoughts we're going to go through. So again, thanks to Chris running the boards and clock, and Elizabeth always being here to help put things into the proper perspective. And we'll be back again next week. By the way, shout out to Cherie Curry, does our bumper music and theme. We'll have Cherie back on the show before too long as well. So signing off for now, The Hard Truth. We'll see you again next week.